Lesson 11, Genesis chapter 8. We're going to take a look at God's covenant with Noah. So yesterday we talked about the flood. We described the time period. How long was Noah in the ark? Remember exactly? Amber?
1 year and 36 days.
Not quite. A little long. Logan? Not quite. Make sure I got it right. You guys are doing, but Brody?
A year and 10 days?
Yeah. There you go. Okay. So a year and 10 days they were in the ark. Now, we're going to talk about now that they get out of the ark, and we specifically stopped there in chapter 8. We didn't leave those last 3 verses because we're going to talk about that today. It's an important topic to talk about. We've talked about the covenant. Again, what is the definition of the covenant? 2 F words. Probably will be for sure on your next test. Brody.
God's friendship and fellowship.
All right, God's friendship and fellowship with man. Okay? That He's established with His people, His elect people. Not all man, but His elect people. He has a bond of friendship. So we are His friends servants, and the bond of fellowship. Okay? We can commune with God through prayer, preaching, many other ways. So, let's take a look at Genesis chapter 8. We're going to start reading at verse 20. And Noah builded an altar. So he comes out of the ark. What does he do? The first thing, Noah builded an altar unto the Lord, and took of every clean beast and of every clean fowl, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. Now, what would be a problem with that? In some people's minds, if we had a misconception of how many numbers of animals went onto the ark, Amber. Right, you'd be losing one. But because they're the clean animals, how many clean animals did he take onto the ark, Brody? 7. Okay, he took 7 of each clean animal onto the ark that could be used for sacrificing. So that way, obviously, there would still be enough to be able to have children. Okay? Good. Verse 21, And the Lord smelled a sweet savor, and the Lord said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground any more for man's sake, for the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I again smite any more everything living as I have done. While the earth remaineth, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. So what is the promise God makes there? What won't He do again, Colin?
He will not curse the ground.
Well, yep. And so what is that? I'm trying to think of a good way to make sure I ask that to you. How does that change? Like, what is that changing here, I guess? I'll leave that open-ended. What is that changing here? Jaden?
God will never send the flood.
Well, that's going to come a little bit later. Okay? That's why I wanted to go over this a little bit here. That comes a little bit later. What do you think this means here? I will not curse the ground anymore for man's sake. When did God curse the ground? Amber? Okay, when Adam and Eve sinned. And what did He say about the ground? What was the curse onto the ground, Amber? Okay. So, I guess what I would take away from this, from that idea there, is that before the flood, the ground was even harder. Like we think of, the tractors going through the fields, right, and plowing the fields. And there's some nice fields out there. You get some nice soil and nice dirt, and it just crumbles, and it's pretty soft, and it's nice, right? If you walk in it, your feet sinking a little bit. Well, when God cursed the ground before the flood, it was much harder. We can think of like a hard-baked, maybe very dry, desolate piece where Mom and Dad said, here, go take the shovel. I want you to dig in the hard ground. And it's the middle of summer. It's been hot for a long time. It's dry. It's not very soft. So it's like almost digging into rocks, okay? So God, okay, in that sense, He made it so that it would be easier for man. There would still be weeds and thorns and thistles. Man is still going to have to work by the sweat of his brow. But the ground is no longer so cursed that it's almost difficult or impossible for the farmers to get into the ground. Okay? So we have that there. And then, so now we can go on to a little bit more what Jaden was saying. And what's another promise that God made here, Jaden?
He will never send a flood again.
Right. I will never will I again smite any more every living thing as I have done. He's not going to kill every single thing on the earth like he did in this instance. Okay. And then in verse 22, what did he promise to send now? And we say this may have happened with the tilt. Maybe the earth tilted. We don't know for sure. Did God create the earth with a tilt or not? Colin? Yeah, he's going to send the seasons we see there in verse 22. He's going to send these seasons. Okay? And they're going to be regular and they're going to be continual. Okay? So all of a sudden it's not going to jump straight from winter to summer and then comes fall and spring and mix things up. It's going to be reliable. God is a reliable God. Okay? And also the beauty there, we don't offer sacrifices anymore. But here Noah did, and the sacrifice, when you would burn something, what goes up from something that you burn? Jennifer? Smoke. When you have a campfire, can you smell that smoke? Probably on your clothes, and you can smell it a while after that, right? Even when you're away from the fire. So a fire brings a smell up. And that would be a sweet-smelling savor to God. God was pleased with Noah's sacrifice here, and it was a sweet-smelling savor. What in our lives? We don't offer sacrifices. So what is the sweet-smelling savor that goes before God that we bring to Him now? Kenton? Yes, our prayers are a sweet-smelling savor to God. When we pray to God properly, in the right way, we come to Him, and we do all those things that we talked about, especially last year, between Jesus and His teaching us to pray, and the disciples. We saw all those different prayers and how we are to pray. When we do that properly, that's a sweet-smelling savor to God here. Okay? Now, what happened to the ark? What do you think happened to the ark? It rested, the doors opened, the animals came out, and then what? What happened to the ark? Colin? Maybe Noah chopped up parts of it, used it for wood. What's another possibility? Jaden? Maybe. Well, there'd probably be a lot more wood than he would need for that. So chop it up, maybe, and then part of what chopping up would be used for the sacrifice. Kenton? Okay, maybe he built stuff with it. Joe? Maybe he just did nothing and let it sit there and rot, right? We don't know. The Bible doesn't tell us. The reason that I bring that up is that we must be careful because every once in a while you hear reports of someone who believes they have found the ark that was such a large wooden structure. There's no way that it could just have rotted away into nothing. Okay, it must have been saved somewhere now. It must be buried under sand or by a mountain somewhere. So there are scholars, right, archaeologists who say, hey, I want to go find bones of people, or I want to find an old settlement somewhere. Well, there's some who say, I would love to find the ark. I think I can find it. So every once in a while you got to watch out in the news. There's those who are going to say, hey, we think we found the ark. Personally, I don't think that it's just like the Garden of Eden. It's not something that somebody's going to find. Okay, that they can say definitively, this is a piece of the ark. Okay, we don't know that. But the Bible doesn't tell us anything about that, where the ark may be or what happened to it, but that's because it's not that important. Okay? So, Noah pleased the Lord. So let's read here in chapter 9, starting at verse 1. Okay? And we'll see what God's response was when he saw what Noah did. And God blessed Noah and his sons, and said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. So that command is again, because now how many people are there on the earth living? Megan? After the flood. Just 8. Okay? So they need to refill the earth. And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth, and upon every fowl of the air, and upon all that moveth upon the earth, and upon all the fishes of the sea, and into your hand are they delivered. What does that verse mean? The fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast. What's the idea there? Megan? Hey, animals will be afraid of you most of the time. A lot of animals are afraid of us. Okay? Now, we know there's obviously exceptions. Okay? Again, most of the time, if a bear sees a human, it's going to try to go away. But if the bear's got cubs and we've somehow got in between them, or we're in the wrong place at the wrong time, there's a good chance that that bear is going to attack us. Okay? It doesn't have any fear at that time. But in general, animals fear humans. Every time you go running towards a squirrel or the rabbit or the chipmunk in the ground, what does it do? Micah? Yeah, it runs away from you. Okay? So if the dog or the cat that's at somebody's house doesn't know you, generally they stay away from you. They back off initially at first. Okay? Not all the time. Dogs can be friendly because they're used to humans. We've made them used to humans. But in general, these animals are afraid of us. 3, verse 3, every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you, even as the green herb have I given you all things. But flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, shall ye not eat. And surely your blood of your lives will I require, at the hand of every beast will I require it, and at the hand of man. And at the hand of every man's brother will I require the life of man. Whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. For in the image of God made he man. And you, be ye fruitful and multiply. Bring forth abundantly in the earth and multiply therein. So, there's a few things here. God blesses Noah. He gave some of those instructions that we talked about. He gives them instructions that now man, if he hasn't already, he has been able to, but man should eat meat. Don't be afraid to eat meat. Okay? But then, what I really want to focus on in verse 6, I asked some questions there. What law did God give Noah in verse 6 here? Amber? Yeah, does anybody know what we call that? Brody? Death penalty, or I gave you that as one of your vocabularies, death penalty, capital punishment. In other words, when someone kills a man, God requires his blood to be shed. That's a command from God. Okay? That's a command from God. It's not something that we go, well, maybe we'll do it, maybe we won't. So that's why I asked that question there. Does our government still obey that? Amber? No, not in some senses. Obviously, the state of Wisconsin does not have the death penalty. Okay? Other states do. The United States government does have the death penalty. Okay? Which means that if Brody were to walk in the gas station and foolishly kill the attendant there while he was robbing them, he would be imprisoned probably for life here in Wisconsin because he's committed a crime here in Wisconsin. However, if Brody walked into the post office and killed a postal worker there, the land and that employee are considered federal employees. Therefore, if the courts wanted to, they could go after Brody and give him the death penalty because he's committed a federal crime. Even though it's in the state of Wisconsin, when you do certain things, they are considered federal crimes, and the federal government could get involved if they wanted and try to try you and penalize you. More likely than not, they don't. But if you did something like that, they do have the opportunity. So our federal government does use the death penalty. The state of Wisconsin does not. So as I said, no, we're not. They are not obeying God's command to shed the blood of murderers. Okay? Not just any person can do that too. We see that a little bit. That sadly, especially with like gangs and other areas, but even more so today. Sometimes we see that where maybe a person in one city and a person in the same city, one person kills another. Well, rather than reporting it to the police, rather than saying, "Oh, I know who did it. It was Bob over there. He killed my brother." What does the guy sometimes do? He says, "Well, I don't know who did it." And then he waits till Bob is all alone. And what does he do? Logan kills him and takes that into his own hand. That is not allowed here under God's law. The law that God gives here to punish those for murdering others is given to the government. That is their right. It's also their responsibility. Okay? And they're supposed to be doing that. But they're not obeying God's command here to do that here in Wisconsin, obviously. And it's becoming even harder. If you guys pay attention to the news, there's people, who say there's not a good way to kill people, because they give them chemicals, or they do whatever, and stops their heart, and it doesn't work always perfectly every time, so that's inhumane. So I can definitely say that it looks like more and more states getting away from the death penalty, or people who are going to be, so there might come a time, maybe 10, 15 years down the road, where there's no death penalty in the United States anymore. Right? We don't know. But God says that's what we need to do. Okay? There in verse 6. All right, now we're going to keep reading here about a little bit more about God's covenant. Okay, verse 8. And God spake unto Noah and to his sons with him, saying, and again, I'm curious about what was that like. Was it just like with Adam, or was it just different? Was it just a voice? Was there a cloud? We don't know. And I, behold, I establish my covenant with you, and with your seed after you, and with every living creature that is with you, of the fowl, of the cattle, and of every beast of the earth with you, from all that go out of the ark, to every beast of the earth. And I will establish my covenant with you. Neither shall all flesh be cut off any more by the waters of a flood, neither shall there any more be a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, this is the token of the covenant which I make between me and you, and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a token of a covenant between me and the earth. And it shall come to pass when I bring a cloud over the earth, and that the bow shall be seen in the cloud, and I will remember my covenant, which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh, and the waters shall no more become a flood to destroy the earth. And the bow shall be in the cloud, and I will look upon it, that I may remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is upon the earth. And God spake unto Noah, this is the token of the covenant which I have established between me and all flesh that is upon the earth. So God, in addition to some of those instructions, tells him more of his covenant, of that relationship of fellowship and friendship with Noah, and the promises to Noah and to his children. So his 3 sons there and their offspring. Okay? It's not an agreement. It's not a handshake. Well, you do this and I'll do that. Okay? Not that type of thing. But notice Noah just stands there and he is listening to God, and God tells him about that. Okay? So God is speaking here, obviously, not only to just these people here, but he's also speaking to the church, because this is the church as well. The church is only 8 people's big, but he's also speaking to the church. So that promise of the covenant is given to God's church as well. Okay? So that's why we see that today. All right, and then what is the sign of God's covenant? That is evident here. Colin? Yeah, the rainbow, right? When does the rainbow come? What do we need to have a rainbow? Micah?
Rain and sun.
Yeah, and they need to be in the same specific places, right? Okay? A little science lesson. But most often we're going to see a rainbow out that direction, okay, in the east. Because to have the rainbow, you need to have clouds, and you need to have rain droplets coming down, okay? And then you need to have you, and then behind you, you need the sun. That's exactly how it needs to be. You could have a rainbow in the morning. Okay, we could have the sun coming up over there. We could have rain coming down over there, and us in the middle. It's not very frequent. In fact, it's pretty rare. But generally, we get rainbows when the sun is behind us, and the clouds are beyond us, and the light is reflecting off of the raindrops to see the rainbow. You can't have the sun over here and shining this way, because it's going to reflect that way. But anyways, God promises from time to time He will set His bow, the rainbow in the clouds, and when we see it, we shouldn't just stand in awe like the world does. Well, that's pretty neat and beautiful. But at the same time, remember God's promise, His covenant with us. He's going to save His people, the church, me and my family. Okay? So that's a beautiful promise that God gives there. He'll be our friend. All right, now let's take a look here to the end. We stopped. Oops. Lost my spot there. All right. And verse 18 to the end, and we see the sin of Noah here. Okay? Verse 18. And the sons of Noah that went forth of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And Ham is the father of Canaan, the Canaanites. These are the 3 sons of Noah. And of them was the whole earth overspread. So they had children, they were fruitful, they multiplied, and their children began to spread out onto the earth. Okay? And Noah began to be an husbandman, and he planted a vineyard. What is it grows in a vineyard? What grows there? Amber? Grapes. Okay? And he planted a vineyard, and he drank of the wine and was drunken. So from the grapes he made wine. He drank too much. He became drunk, and he was uncovered, so naked within his tent, laying there, maybe on his bed, naked. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brethren went out. You can imagine snickering and laughing. Hey guys, come here and check this out. Look at Dad over there. What a fool he is. Ha ha ha. It's kind of funny. Nowadays, if they had it, they probably would have taken pictures and made all kinds of fun, maybe posted them on the internet to make fun of their father, embarrass him. And Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon both their shoulders and went backward and covered the nakedness of their father, and their faces were backward, and they saw not their father's nakedness. They were ashamed of their father, I'm sure, but they also had respect for their father. And so when they took that sheet in, that blanket, they walked in backwards. They would not see their father, one on probably each side, and dropped that sheet to cover the nakedness of their father so they could not see him. And unlike their brother Ham, they did not make fun of him and go running around probably telling everyone of the sin, the wickedness of their father. In that sense, sin is private. When we see someone else sin, we talk to them about it, but we don't go spread it to the whole world. Anyways, verse 24, so what happened after that? And Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his younger son had done unto him, Ham. And he said, Cursed be Canaan. A servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. So that's interesting there. That he doesn't curse Ham, but he curses Ham's children. And he said, Blessed be the Lord God of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. And God shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. And Noah lived after the flood 350 years, and all the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died. So another man who lived an extremely long life. So it couldn't have been that right after coming out of the ark that Noah did the sin, but it must have been a while, because it takes a while to get vineyards up and growing and get them healthy enough that you're growing enough grapes to make wine. So probably some time after being off the ark that Noah did this, maybe in his older age, he fell into the sin, obviously, of drunkenness. Okay? And we've gone over those facts there. We've seen that, hopefully, too. When our parents, if they may sin, okay, we still show respect. They are still our parents. They're still over us as God has placed them there. But Noah curses Canaan. Canaan, obviously, is the father of the Canaanites, the tribes that will be in Canaan that are filled with wickedness, like the Philistines and the Edomites, the Moabites, and so on. Well, actually not the Edomites and the Moabites, but the Canaanites, those living in the land of Canaan, who will be there, that we see there when Abraham eventually will come. Not the Edomites, Moabites, because those are children that come from Adam or Abraham later on. But then we see God blesses Shem and blesses Japheth. Shem is the line of Jesus. Okay, Shem is where Christ will come from. So Shem, his children will be Abraham and Isaac and Jacob in that line. Okay, whereas Japheth will be who? What do we call Japheth's line? The people from Japheth's line eventually will be Jaden? Gentiles. The Gentiles. Shem's line will be the Jews. Japheth's line will be the Gentiles. And God will have his people from both of them. Okay? So they share. That's why Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem. He will share in that blessing that God has given to save his people. Okay? So we can remember that too. Okay? We see there are some who are blessed and there are some who are cursed. Okay? Those will last until the end of the world, till all time. But we are blessed. We can say that we are greatly blessed by God to know him and to love him. God doesn't promise that every single one of our children will be saved. That's not the case always. Okay? But we believe and we hope and we pray and we speak to that as though God will save all of them. But so God's covenant here, his fellowship of friendship between God and man is established with Noah. We have the beautiful picture of the rainbow. Hopefully you can remember that. You know, we go on with our lives, we get busy, and sometimes we don't think too much about godly life and the way that we should be living. And we can say that's a beautiful reminder of God telling us when that rainbow comes out that he is a God that loves us, cares for us. We can remember that then.